Welcome to Kadampa podcasts. These podcasts offer practical solutions to daily challenges and help guide us to a happier and more peaceful state of mind. In each episode, you will find an extract from a teaching given by one of various Kadampa Buddhist teachers worldwide. All these teachings are inspired by the profound wisdom of Venerable Geshe Kelsang Gyatso Rinpoche, a Buddhist master for our time. We hope you will enjoy listening.
So what I'd like to talk to you this morning then about is what's called patient acceptance. Right? So our resilience comes through our ability to be able to keep going. Right? Even if we need to take a rest, even if we're a bit wrecked for a while, whatever it takes, but we get up, and we keep going. This is what resilience is. We keep going, we keep trying, we keep making an effort to have a meaningful life. So with patient acceptance, what we're doing, so it sort of draws on, so when we're in our meditation, we try to cultivate this mind of patient acceptance, okay? And it draws on everything that we've learned so far. So we might sit in our meditation and we think, okay, life is very challenging. Everybody is experiencing difficulties and problems. There are lots of things in my life that I do not want, that I do not have a choice, but I have to experience them. Right? So we sit in our meditation, we think, okay, life is very challenging for everyone. Okay? There are lots of things in my life right now that I do not want. Okay? Nobody's got everything they want in their life right now. We've all got stuff going on that we really would rather we didn't. Right? But there's no choice, we've got to have it. But I have no choice but to experience it. Okay? And it's funny, when we say this, the mind relaxes. Because what causes us problems is when a difficulty arises, what happens, your first thing is, even though you might not put it in these words, is I do not want it. I don't want this. Right? And so what happens is there's a resistance in the mind. There's a pulling in the mind, a resistance, pulling away from what's happening that you have no choice but to experience. Okay? There's a resistance, there's a battle in the mind. Whereas if our mind accepts and endures what we cannot change, it remains peaceful, and we realize that our resistance is futile and our mind and body relaxes. Okay? And we accept. Completely different experience. Now, I'm not saying here, this is it in certain situations. This can't be applied to everything. Do you know what I mean? If someone's punching me in the face, I don't stand there and say, okay, this is not what I want, but I accept. Do you know what I mean? We've got to use a bit of wisdom here. Okay? So we're thinking, okay, so right now in my life, there are problems and difficulties. Right? Lots of people are experiencing problems and difficulties right now. Right? We say. However, I have no choice. Right? These things are happening. I accept. Rather than, this is happening in my life, I hate it, I don't want it, I want it changed, I want to get back to my normal. Do you see what I mean? Because then this going on and on and on, it's happening because I'm useless, it's happening blah, blah, blah. This is causing so much pain then for us. Whereas if the mind can accept, okay, it's not what we want, but if we look around, nobody is living the life that they want. There are some aspects to everybody's life that they do not want. So we accept. If we do this, it lessens our suffering. It definitely does. Like if you've got a lot of physical pain, for example, use physical pain, but it works with mental pain. If we've got a lot of physical pain and we're thinking, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, which is normal, isn't it? We don't want it, but we think, I just don't want it. What's happening is the mind's getting tense, the body's getting tense, and what happens with the pain? It gets worse, doesn't it? Any physical pain, if you get tense, whatever it is, whether it's minor or major illness you have, it gets worse because the body gets so tight. If you relax, okay, it doesn't necessarily stop the pain, but it is less than what it would be if we are really tense. So our suffering lessens. Okay? Same, if our mind gets really tight, really tense with the situation, our mental pain increases. Okay? Our mental pain increases, so we experience more pain. If we relax the mind, still we have the problem hasn't vanished, okay? But internally, less pain. In this way, it allows us to strengthen our mind, because the more we accept what we cannot change, okay, then we just cope with what's appearing. Our mind becomes stronger. Okay, the resistance and the negativity makes our mind weaker. And in fact, what happens is through stopping resistance and allowing the mind to accept, our mind becomes more flexible. Okay, because what happens is when we say, I don't want this, our mind becomes rigid. Right? The problem arises, I don't want this. This isn't right. This is not it. Blah, 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 blah. The mind becomes tight and rigid. So we can't see our way through the problem because our mind's tight. And our solution is get rid of it. Then everything will be fine. Right? But we get rid of that problem, another one comes anyway, doesn't it? Right? So what we need to do is, the more the mind can accept, because the mind becomes much more gentle, okay? So our experience of it is, and then what happens is that the mind learns to actually move and bend with the problem. Okay? So it's just different, rather than just becoming rigid, we learn to move and bend. And as a result of the mind becoming more flexible and moving and bending, the impact of the problem is not as painful. So the analogy that I like and I use a lot is, of trees. The willow tree, because of its beautiful branches, when it's really windy and stormy, what happens to those branches? They move and dance around, don't they? And generally they stay stuck to the tree. Yeah? Because they're able, aren't they? They're very flexible. So this is the type of mind that we need, okay? They don't break because they're able to move with the situation. Their mind remains flexible. Okay? So this is what we need. Whereas the opposite, a mind with no patience, just makes everything worse. And we do know this. If I said to you, oh, look, I'd really like you to meet this friend of mine. I think you'd find him really helpful because he is so incredibly patient. Amazing with all his problems, such patience. You'd think, oh, that's an interesting person. But if I was to say to you, oh, I'd really like you to meet this friend of mine. Oh, they get angry so easily with everything and they're never patient at all. What would you think? You don't really want to meet those. Well, maybe like from a distance, out of curiosity, but you would not really, you know what I mean? So we do sort of know on some level that there is a patience. And anyone who's had children or has children, we don't teach our children to get really angry all the time with everybody. We do try to teach them a little bit of patience, don't we? Because we know, the difficulties of school and all the rest of it, and that sometimes children do have to deal with the difficulties of being in a classroom, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean? So we do sort of know the benefits of patience, and we do often encourage other people. But when it comes to ourselves, problem, don't want it. It's big, strong resistance. So Buddha said, no patience, then we just will get upset, angry, and unhappy, and this increases our suffering. And it produces mental pain, increases our physical pain, and what's more, it stops all our logic and reasoning. So we can't navigate our way through any situations. So we contemplate until we conclude, that we want to try to accept what we cannot change. If we can change stuff to make it easier, of course, we can. But there are many things in our life that in that moment, we might be able to maneuver things later, but in that moment, we cannot change it through external means. So we come to this conclusion, I must accept what I cannot change. And it's not I must grin and bear it. It's an acceptance. There's an acceptance from the heart. The mind relaxes, and then we just deal with it. And it's amazing how we can actually deal with things once we stop that resistance. It's not a battle. It's not a fight. It's an acceptance. So when we do a meditation, what we do is then we first will do our breathing meditation, then we contemplate the benefits of this mind of patient acceptance, and then we conclude with, that we will accept patiently what we cannot change. Okay? We just accept that. And that is our meditation object. And then when we come out of meditation, we try to apply that to our day. Okay? So whatever arises, so we've set a determination. Okay? We've set ourselves up, right, for that day. Whatever arises, we're going to accept what we cannot change. And we're going to move more flexibly through that day, trying to put this meaningful object into practice. And so what happens then is, as these difficulties arise, we're accepting, because our mind is more peaceful, then wisdom can come and it will help us navigate through. And as a result of this, our mind becomes stronger. We have more resilience. Okay? The mind that says, I can't do it, I don't want it, I hate this, and then has a complete freak out about it, that mind will hit the deck and stay down because there's nothing to bring it up again, right? There's difficult external circumstances, difficult internal circumstances. So then everything feels hopeless. Whereas this patient acceptance also accepts that the situation that we are experiencing, and I, the person who am experiencing, and the experience of it are all temporary, just bad weather. Okay? So that helps, doesn't it? Because if we think something is permanent and never going to shift and change, that's really hard. But if we think, okay, this is just for a moment, it's just appearing for me, I've just got to deal with it. And it will change, because everything changes, nothing stays the same.
If you feel inspired by this podcast, then dive deeper into the timeless wisdom of modern Kadampa Buddhism by following the link in the episode description. We look forward to reconnecting with you in the next episode of Kadampa Podcasts.